All right. Well, I watched the Obama economic speech from, I guess it was Wednesday, and I watched some other press conference or something else he was at. Anyway, he's just so full of shit. He's a hard, it's all politics. I mean, there's just no point in these guys talking for an hour because 50 minutes, 59 minutes of it is just crap. Just. I don't know, patronizing mush, Look at Joe here, and, he's starting his own business, and Mary's doing, all this anecdotal crap. It has nothing, you won't hear a statistic that means anything. Just completely unrealistic. So anyway, he, in this speech, the part that was important to me was his explanation of how his plan, let's borrow a big giant pile of money and throw it at the problem and hope it fixes everything. The whole bank bailout thing. So his rationale was we had to save the banks because if we didn't save the banks, we wouldn't be able to continue this fractional reserve banking scheme where the assets are loaned out tenfold. And, he's still arguing that somehow there's a credit crisis. And there's not a credit crisis. There's a debt crisis. There's nobody to loan the money to. The economy isn't growing. It's shrinking. The only people going to be borrowing money now are people in desperate straits. You get unemployed, you're going to start borrowing money. And if you're a business and you're already in any kind of trouble, you're going to be borrowing money. Yeah, but it's not money you have much prospect of paying back unless this is just a little bump in the road. And it's, I think, pretty clear it's not just a little bimp. Okay, it's a big, giant crevasse that we're going to fly down. And so it was nonsense logic. And so understand that this is his excuse, basically. This is the excuse is, well, why don't you just, if you want to put the money back into the bank, well, why don't you put it in by giving it to the guy who bought the house? All right? Why don't you give it to him? Cut his mortgage in half. All right? Pay off half his mortgage. Okay, as if his house is worth half what it used to be worth, well then pay off half the mortgage. The money will go back into the bank as an asset, just like it would if you just did the way we did it, which was just give it all to the IOU holders. And so you'd have the same, basically, the same equity in the system. But they wanted to play it this way because they, number one, they don't want to give any equity to the slob who bought the house. They don't want him not paying the bank more money. So now they can give more money to the rich people. So they can bail out. Basically, the equation was, well, by splitting the difference, that is, calling them both guilty. Calling the guy who bought the house guilty and calling the guy who lent him the money guilty, and somehow splitting the damage. No, they can save more rich people if they don't worry about the poor guy who loses everything that he put in. So if we do the 100% bailout of just the IOU holders and don't worry about the people who do the IOUing, we can what it just means is we can save more rich people. It doesn't mean there'll be more money in the economy. It just means that we'll save more rich people. They'll pay no price for the games they played. And that's basically what it is. We're giving them everything back. We're restoring them to 100% solvency. And we're leaving the guy who bought the house completely fucked. So, the disaster of the bubble breaking in the real estate market, they've basically defined it as it's all the person who borrowed the money's fault. Okay, the smart-ass bankers who went to college and should have known what a risk was, it's not their fault at all. So we just bailed them all out. And it's especially when you add in this $250,000 limit on the FDIC insurance, the fact that they doubled it in half, it's just so obvious what happened here. It was just to bail out the rich. Okay, and we, if we're going to spend this money, we could have just, if we thought there was a real credit crisis, we could have just said, hell, let the banks fold, and just clean up the mess in a legitimate manner. But no, instead we did it this illegitimate way, this sneaky way, because it preserves all the rich people. They don't pay any price at all, not 10%, not 15, not 20, not 30, not any kind of penalty for their part in the game. They get restored 100%, and the government gets sacked with bullshit. Okay, with holding a mortgage for a property that ain't worth anything, and the guy holding the mortgage, the guy paying the mortgage, he's got nothing. He's got no prospect of ever owning that property. So he's just paying rent to the government, basically, is what it turns into. So it's just so friggin' dishonest, not to tell us exactly why this game was played this way. And it's not for the benefit of the economy. It was only because it's to the benefit of the richest people in the country, and that's it. Period. There's nothing more complicated than that. All right. The poor guy was sold out. He was entirely assessed all the blame, and it's bullshit. I hate the fact. Look, I never had credit in my life. I don't want credit. Bullshit. Be a borrower and lender, be kind of thing. Yeah, fuck that shit. So I sort of resent people who have lived on debt, because it was sort of bullshit, why should anybody else clean up your mess? If you go bankrupt, it's kind of bullshit that every other consumer has to pay because you make your fucking mistakes. Because you live a better life than you were entitled to. But this is the equation now. Now we're really stuck, okay? Because now we've spent a ton of money bailing out the richest people, and what are we going to do when the problem starts killing other people? We're not going to bail them out when they have no place to live. Who's going to have the money to buy all the assets when the fire sale starts? When nobody has any assets, nobody competing to buy anything, it's just going to be a huge fire sale. And the only people who have money are who? The people we just gave $1 trillion to, or $3 trillion to, realistically. They have all the money, so they'll be able to buy up everything. It's a perfect blueprint of serfdom. It's like you've just basically you already have noblemen, and you've just made them all kings, okay? Because you're giving them all the power, and the people are going to have none, because we're going into deflation. Wages are going to go down; they're not going to be going up. All right, so any debt you hold now is going to kill you. It's going to friggin' drown you. It's going to be unsustainable, and because we haven't hit the bottom yet, and and then once we get to that bottom, all there's going to be is an impossible inflation, because now we're just going to be carrying all this bad money is somehow going to have to be paid off to the federal government's going to somehow have to pay it off. And how are they going to do it? Who are they going to raise taxes on? Where are they going to get the tax revenue from? Because no one's going to have a frickin' job, and they're not going to have enough money. They're not going to be earning enough money to sustain anything. I could play his last, I don't know how much time I got here. The last couple of minutes of his speech was just so disgusting. Where the hell to put it? Friggin' guy. But really, I hate this guy.
There's an extraordinary sense of responsibility to ourselves, to the men and women who sent us here, to the many generations whose lives will be affected for good or for ill because of what we do here. There's no doubt that times are still tough. By no means are we out of the woods just yet. But from where we stand, for the very first time, we're beginning to see glimmers of hope. And beyond that, way off in the distance, we can see a vision of an America's future that is far different than our troubled economic past. It's an America teeming with new industry and commerce, humming with new energy and discoveries that light the world once with. A place where anyone from anywhere with a good idea or the will to work can live the dream they've heard so much about.
It's just such a pile of crap. No, it's going to be huge competition for jobs, okay? Wages are going to be driven down. We're going to be working for Chinese wages. We're going to still be competing against Chinamen. Chinamen also in a bad economy, okay? It's a race to the bottom now. We're all going to be Okies. We're going to be working a day for a hamburger, for a peach. It's just a complete disaster is what we're facing. It's just totally unrealistic to be talking like we're coming out of something or we're moving forward to something. We haven't resolved any of the problem because it has to be balanced. I mean, at least if you're going to, the blame has to be assessed on the people who played the game, and those were the richest people in the world. They played the game. They decided, I want to make more and more money. I want to lend my money out basically to 100 times or 10 times at least. I want to take the same money and lend it 10 times. And now they've lost huge on that gamble. And somehow it's supposed to be everybody's responsibility. No, it's their responsibility. Fuck them. Anyway. I mean, so Obama has done nothing but feed the very inequity that exists in our economy, the disproportional ownership that has led us to this mess, and he's just feeding it some more. This is no answer. You can't borrow your way out of this mess.